When you first turn on the machine, it goes directly to straight stitch. In order to know which presser foot to use, we're going to come here on the panel and press this I button, which means info. When I press that, it says OA. That means my general purpose presser foot. I'm going to press that one more time, and I can see that there's a dot here in the corner, and that also means that I need to engage my integrated even feed system. My OA foot is already on the machine, and now I'm going to reach down and engage my integrated even feed, and we're ready to sew the seam. I'm going to place the fabric underneath the presser foot with the edge of my fabric along my selected seam guideline. Step on the foot controller to start sewing, and we'll sew a couple of stitches, and then press the reverse button to sew backwards a few stitches to lock the seam. Now we're going to sew forward again. When I come to the end of the seam, sew a couple of stitches in reverse, sew forward again, raise the presser foot lifter, and trim your thread. And there's our seam. We sew reverse stitches at the beginning and end of the seam so that our seam doesn't come undone as we continue to work on our project. This is your general purpose foot, 0A, which you use with your integrated even feed system. This foot is used with your utility or basic stitches. Your all-purpose foot, 1A, is also used with the integrated even feed system, and this foot is used for many of your decorative stitches. For more dense decorative stitching, you'll use satin stitch foot 2A, which is not used with the integrated even feed system. The blind hem foot 3 is used with the integrated even feed system, and this is for sewing blind hems. The zipper foot 4 is also used with the integrated even feed system, and this is for sewing in zippers and also for making and inserting piping. And lastly, you have buttonhole foot 5B, and that's for sewing buttonholes. Now let's take a look at how to select stitches and a closer look at some of the other features of your machine. I'm going to use the zigzag stitch, which is stitch 02. I want to be sure I'm using the correct presser foot, so I'm going to press the info button, and I can see that I need presser foot 0A, and that's already on my machine. When I press info one more time, I can also see that this little dot appears in the corner, and that's an indication that I need to engage the integrated even feed system. It's already engaged, so I'm ready to sew. I'm going to place my fabric underneath the presser foot, lower the presser foot lifter, and step on the foot control to begin sewing. My machine is sewing at its lowest speed right now, but I can use my speed control buttons 3, 4, and 5 times. Stop sewing, raise the presser foot lifter, and you can trim your thread at the side of the machine on your built-in thread cutter. So here's our default setting for our zigzag stitch. Let's take a look at how to adjust length and width on a stitch like zigzag. This is your stitch width control, and this is your stitch length control. Let's talk about stitch width first. You can touch either of these to see what your current setting is or what your default setting is. So I could see by touching this once that my stitch width was set at 4.0. If I want to increase my stitch width, I can simply press the plus sign until I reach my maximum stitch width, which is 7 millimeters. So let's see what that looks like. It's quite a big difference. I can also make my stitches narrower by pressing the minus. When I come back to the default setting of 4.0, the LED light goes out, the 4.0 value blinks momentarily. We can continue pressing to come to a narrower setting. Let's try a 2.0 for example. Place the fabric under the presser foot and step on the foot control to begin sewing. And here you have a narrower value on your stitch width. Let's go back to the default setting of 4.0 for our stitch width. And let's look at changing the stitch length. As before, I can touch either the plus or minus to see what my stitch length value is, and in the case of the zigzag, stitch number 0.2, that value was 1.5. I can lengthen out my stitch length. .5 is maximum, so let's see what that looks like. So here's my default width, but my stitches are just a little further apart by increasing stitch length. Let's go the other direction and bring them closer together. To do that, we'll go down to, let's say, a 0.8. And here you can see our stitches are closer together. So for any of your decorative stitches or your utility stitches, you can experiment with stitch length and stitch width and even some decorative threads to get the look you want for your project. Now let's see how to select one of our decorative stitches. I'm going to use stitch number 27. So I'm going to press 2-7 on my panel, and I'm going to press the info button to see which foot I should use. I see I need foot 1A, and I'm also going to need to use the integrated even feed system. Down here, I'm going to temporarily disengage the even feed and remove my foot 0A by pushing up on the toes of the foot to release it. I'm going to place foot 1A on the machine. The difference between 1A and 0A is basically when you turn them over, you can see on the back side of foot 1A there's a tunnel or a bit of a groove under here that lets your stitching pass freely underneath. Bring your foot underneath the presser foot holder and lower the presser foot lifter until the foot snaps in place. Place your threads under the presser foot and reach behind to engage the integrated even feed system. And now we're ready to sew stitch number 27. When you're finished sewing, raise your presser foot lifter, trim your threads, and here's your stitch. Now I'm going to select one of my more dense decorative stitches, number 50. So up here on my panel, I'm going to press 5-0. And when I press my info button, I can see I need foot 2A. And because there's no dot here in the corner, it means I do not use integrated even feed system. I can also tell because the foot does not have the cutaway for the even feed system. So we're simply going to change the foot. I'm going to disengage the integrated even feed system and push up on the toes of the foot that's on the machine. Place foot 2A under the presser foot holder and lower the presser foot lifter to snap it into place. And place our threads underneath the machine, and we're going to sew stitch number 50. And there's our beautiful decorative stitch number 50 using our satin stitch foot 2A. There's another really great feature on your SINGER Featherweight C240 sewing machine called the tie-off button, and it's located right here on the front of your panel. When you're sewing a stitch and you want to stop, you can press this button and it will pause, tie off the stitch, and stop sewing. Let's see how that works. I'm going to use stitch number 53. So I'm ready to tie off. And I can trim my thread and my stitch is secure.